What's going on, YouTube family? Thanks for joining Fishing with Fidel. This is be episode number 3. Today's episode is brought to you by none other than Walmart brand flushable wipes. Never leave home without them. When you're having one of those moments like, what in the world is going on here? This will tighten you right up. Get them at your Walmart today. All right, back to the good stuff. Today in this episode, I'm going to show you how to do a Carolina rig. A Carolina rig is a simple way of having your hook, advertising your bait, fishing from the bottom. I was not successful when I went fishing this past Sunday for trout. So I'm going to rig my rod using a Carolina rig. I'm going to show you how to do that. And I'm doing all of this to take a crack back at it, hopefully this weekend. The trout won round 1, so it's 1-0. But I got to try to even those odds. So without further ado, let me show you what I have in order to, or what you would need if you want to make yourself a Carolina rig. Carolina rig, again, is when you're fishing your bait off the bottom. A Carolina rig is for all types of fishing where you are going to be fishing off the bottom. It is not just specific to trout. So, a couple things here by way of equipment. This is called a swivel. Not sure if you can see that. There's 2 loops on the end, kind of like some round spherical shing ding going on in the middle, and it twirls, helps to keep your line from getting twisted, among other things. You need that. You will also need weights. These are called egg sinkers. And let me pull one out for you so you can see. Similar to an egg with 2 holes on the end. You're going to need that. And you're going to need fluorescent beads. And of course, a hook. And I'm going to be using treble hooks. So I'm not sure if you can see that, but it's a hook, 1 stem, 3 hooks off of 1 stem. And that's pretty much all you need. Oh, and one other thing, you're going to need monofilament. Another fancy word for line, and I'm using 10-pound line, which I'm going to feed off of each one of these swivels and a hook. So first thing to do is I'm going to grab my line. You grab your rod, and first thing you want to do is take your sinker and put it onto the end. So let me cut some of this. And let's see what this is, 1/16. Let me go up. Because you want your sinker to stay at the bottom and not be pulled or pushed by the current. So I'm going to be using a 3/8 sinker and see what that gets me. And you can always change it. I'll always change it if for whatever reason I found out that this isn't effective. And then after I do that, I'm going to place a bead to follow the sinker. So one bead, and insert like so. Then I want to take my swivel and tie it. Pretty simple. That's it. Pretty simple. And so now I'm going to have my monofilament, this here, coming off of this first hole on the sinker. I mean on the swivel. So open this up, and 8 to 10 pounds is good. A couple places that I've seen recommended 10. Again, this is not an exact science, but we'll go with that. That's about cool. About 8 inches. So you want to tie your monofilament onto your swivel. Now, the purpose of this is that when you cast this out and this sinks to the bottom, the bait that I'm using, power bait, floats. So your line will be in the bottom, the swivel will hit, the sinker will be on the floor of the lake or body of water that you're fishing in, and your bait will be drifting or floating up, extending out to attract the fish. Seaweed and floor of the vegetation that's on the floor of the lake can hide your bait potentially. Fish won't see it. This way, the bait will suspend above the seaweed or any vegetation so that the fish can see it and take it. That's the whole theory behind this. So, I'm going to tie this off. I'm not all into fancy making knots. It's a typical knot. And I've been pretty successful making just a regular knot in my fishing experience. So, there you go. Tighten it up. And then I'm going to now take my treble hook and tie that on the end. And I'll probably do an average of 3 knots. And again, treble hooks, you can use any kind of hook you want, really. But my preference and that of a lot of fishermen is to use treble hooks. Trout typically have their mouths are pretty small, and you just want to maximize your strike potential. When they strike, you want to be able to connect. And triple hooks or treble hooks increase those odds of hooking the fish. So, when all said and done, this is the finished product. Let's see if I try to get this into focus for you. So if you can see, I have the sinker followed by the bead. I have my line that extends to my treble hook. And then I'll just repeat the process 1 or 2 more times. So when I'm done with this, I will have 2 or 3 hooks on this one rod, and I will have my power bait on each rod. On each line, on each hook, and therefore maximize my chances of catching a fish. And there you have it, ladies and gentlemen. That's an example of a Carolina rig. If you have any questions, just shoot me a comment and I will get back to you as soon as I can. Quite briefly, I'm going to answer some questions that some subscribers had sent a couple days ago, and something I want to keep on top of. I appreciate those that have subscribed, and keep them coming. So give me 1 sec. Oh, if you're wondering what this is, this wasn't any confrontation with any fish. Just had to get some blood work done. You know, the older you get, you gotta stay on top of your health, visit the doctor. And for men my age, I'm 47, don't ignore getting that colonoscopy. They make it easier to do now. Blew my mind. They sent an envelope in the mail requesting a stool sample. Blew my mind. You can now mail stool. But I guess that's better than, okay, I need you to bend over. This is going to be real quick. Cough. I'd rather mail my stuff than what doctors typically do, put it that way. So, let me see, where were we? Questions from subscribers. Question from subscriber acting the fool, says, are artificial bait better to fish with or real worms? Thanks for your question. Thanks for subscribing. The answer to that question is both artificial baits and worms work very well. A lot of times fishermen consider real bait as cheating and go the route of artificial bait. But artificial baits are very successful. It kind of depends upon what the fisherman himself prefers. My preference is live bait, live worms, and I primarily use live worms when I'm fishing for bass. But artificial baits do work and they are successful. I have been very successful in catching a lot of fish on artificial baits. One good thing about artificial baits is you don't deal with nuisance fish. So if you're trying to catch something, you don't have to worry about nuisance fish like bluegill or sunfish nibbling and eating at your worm. So in answer to your question, artificial baits work just as good. Sometimes artificial baits are better to use in certain circumstances, depending upon what type of fish you're fishing for and the element that you're fishing in, the type of body of water you're fishing in. All those things are factors to consider. But my honest opinion is that it does not matter what works better, if there is such a thing. Both work equally well in my opinion. Thanks for your question. Moving on to another question from another subscriber. from the town of, whatchamacallit, Michigan. Never heard of that. Do you prefer fishing? No, excuse me. What bait attracts fish? Hmm. Uh, well, right now I'm fishing for trout. So trout primarily are caught on power bait, which is an artificial doughy-like bait. Here's one example of power bait. This is very successful in catching trout. Um, small red worms are effective in catching trout. Oddly enough, I didn't know this till recently. Corn is effective in catching trout. Um, Trout also like insects. Um, they're called nymphs. They're like little flies. So artificial flies that sporting goods stores sell are very effective baits as well for catching trout. Um, if you're fishing for something like catfish, catfish will eat anything for bait, pretty much. People use soap for catfish. Um, Hot dogs, shrimp, um, other fish, small fish like bluegill, bull minnows. Catfish have a wide variety in their diet, so they pretty much eat anything. Carp, you're very successful with corn, a whole kernel, yellow sweet corn. Those fish off the top of my head, I know what they like as far as baits. I'm not too familiar with other species of fish and what they prefer. Um, but there you have it. Thanks for your question. Uh, this about wraps up our time, folks. Um, Please subscribe, hit that like button. Thanks for joining me on another episode of Fishing with Fidel. I'm going to be hitting the water soon for round 2 for some trout. Probably will go back to Lake Centennial and see if I can be successful. Again, thanks for joining. See you soon.